In a quiet, unassuming village tucked far into the heart of Canada, nestled tenderly between dense, whispering forests and rolling hills cloaked in lush emerald, life unfolded with a slow, comforting rhythm. Days passed gently here, predictable and steady, much like the turning pages of a well-worn book beloved by generations. The villagers clung tightly to their time-honored traditions, treasuring the ancient tales passed down like precious heirlooms around flickering fireplaces. Elders with faces weathered by time wove stories steeped in magic, curses, and shadowy creatures said to lurk in the dark woods beyond their homes. These tales were told with reverence, often accompanied by a quiet sense of unease, and had become an inseparable thread in the village's rich tapestry of identity. Yet, 14-year-old Simon stood apart from his community. To him, these stories were nothing more than fanciful nonsense, fairy tales spun by idle minds seeking distraction from the silence of long nights. He dismissed them as trivial fables, meant for those who had little else to occupy their thoughts, that is, until one fateful evening when everything he believed would be irrevocably changed. Simon had always possessed an insatiable curiosity that bordered on reckless. If there was a hole in the ground, he wouldn't hesitate to plunge his hand into it. If a narrow trail wound deep into the forest's heart, he would follow it, no matter how dense the undergrowth or how shadowed the path. His parents had long since abandoned the futile effort to keep him indoors, resigned to the fact that his adventurous spirit could not be contained. That evening, as the sun dipped slowly behind the distant hills, setting the sky ablaze with hues of fiery orange and deep purple, Simon ventured farther into the woods than ever before. The long shadows stretched like creeping fingers across the winding path, while a chill breeze rustled the leaves above, carrying with it an eerie stillness that pressed against his senses. Just as he was about to turn back, a sudden movement caught his eye. Beneath a gnarled, ancient oak tree stood a man, hunched and cloaked in ragged, threadbare clothes that hung loosely from his gaunt frame. The fading light caught his eyes, causing them to glimmer faintly with an unnatural, unsettling glow. His voice, when he spoke, was like gravel being ground beneath heavy boots. "You've wandered too far, boy," he warned with a rasp. Simon froze, his heart thundering wildly against his ribs. He opened his mouth to reply, but before a word could escape, the man muttered something indecipherable under his breath. Suddenly, a searing warmth erupted through Simon's right arm, burning like wildfire coursing through his veins. And just as abruptly as he had appeared, the man vanished. Swallowed by the misty shadows of the forest, shaken but determined to dismiss what had just happened, Simon sprinted home, telling himself it was nothing more than a strange, tired old man. But when dawn broke, the cold, harsh reality settled over him like a shadow he could no longer ignore. There was a lump on his forearm. At first, it was just a small, unassuming bump, nothing to worry about, but by the second day, it had swollen dramatically, growing as large as a golf ball. The skin around it turned angry red, hot to the touch, and it throbbed with a relentless pain that made every movement agonizing. Alarmed, Simon's parents rushed him into their aging pickup truck and sped to the village doctor. The moment the doctor saw the swollen arm, concern flickered across his face. He immediately used his connections to secure an emergency appointment with Professor Nelson, a renowned physician from the nearby city. Professor Nelson was a man of sharp intellect and scientific rigor, famously impatient with the superstitions of rural folk. If it couldn't be explained by medicine or biology, he dismissed it outright. In the cold, sterile white clinic, Simon sat trembling on the examination table as Nelson examined the tumor closely. "It's unusual," Nelson remarked, peering over thick glasses, "but not beyond explanation. We'll run some tests." He brought out an infrared lamp to analyze the structure of the tumor, making notes under his breath. But the moment the lamp's light touched Simon's arm, chaos erupted. From every corner of the room, walls, vents, floorboards, hundreds, perhaps thousands, of black, twitching spiders poured out like a living nightmare. Their many legs scurried frantically as they swarmed toward Simon's arm, drawn like iron filings to a magnet. Simon's mother screamed in terror, knocking over medical instruments in her panic, while his father stumbled backward, fists clenched in helpless fear. Professor Nelson, despite his composed demeanor, turned pale and hastily switched off the lamp. Instantly, the spiders froze mid-scuttle, as if held by invisible strings, then slowly retreated, vanishing back into their hiding places. Silence slammed down over the room like a heavy door. Nelson stood there, breathing hard, hands trembling. This is impossible, he muttered. Disbelief etched across his face. News of Simon's ordeal spread like wildfire throughout the village. In a place already steeped in tales of curses and magic, this incident was fuel to an already roaring fire. Whispers of dark sorcery and witchcraft swirled in every conversation. Many villagers were convinced Simon had been marked by some sinister force. Others suspected the strange old man was a wizard or worse. Professor Nelson, however, insisted there had to be a logical explanation. Though his eyes betrayed his unease and his hands shook slightly, he maintained his scientific stance. "We just need to find the answer," he said firmly. "The old man might be the key," Nelson told the police, and so began the search. After several tense days, the police finally found the man, a reclusive hermit living in a remote cabin deep within the forest. When officers forced their way inside, they found him hunched over a half-starved cat, muttering unintelligible words. The man denied everything fiercely. "I'm no wizard," he growled, "just a man who cares for animals more than people." Despite his protests, the village was eager for a scapegoat, and the man was held for questioning. Meanwhile, Simon desperately sought answers, and Professor Nelson refused to sit idle. Night after night, the doctor ran countless tests, blood analyses, tissue biopsies, chemical assays, determined to unravel the mystery that had inexplicably arrived in their quiet village. One chilly evening, bathed in the cold, unforgiving glow of the fluorescent lights that flickered overhead in his cluttered laboratory, Professor Nelson finally caught a crucial break. After countless hours hunched over microscopes and scanning obscure scientific journals, he uncovered something remarkable inside the tumor, a strange chemical compound unlike anything he had ever encountered before. Diving deep into dusty volumes and forgotten research papers, Nelson's persistence paid off. He identified the substance as a rare pheromone secreted by a nearly undocumented species of spider, one so elusive that it had barely been noted in scientific records. What was even more astounding was what happened under infrared light. This pheromone became supercharged, emitting a powerful signal that irresistibly attracted every nearby spider, drawing them like moths to a flame, directly to its source. "This isn't magic," Nelson muttered under his breath, pounding his fist on the desk in a rare moment of triumph. "This is science." When he called Simon and his family back to the clinic, Nelson's excitement was palpable, his usual stern demeanor softened by a gleam of hope. He explained, "The tumor isn't the result of some curse or spell." His eyes sparkled with renewed energy. "It's actually the result of a rare spider bite. The venom triggered an unusual reaction in Simon's body, causing it to produce this powerful pheromone." Simon's father frowned, concern creasing his brow. "But what about that old man in the woods?" Nelson shrugged thoughtfully. "Simon might have been bitten during that encounter. Perhaps the man kept exotic animals or spiders as pets. But there's no concrete evidence that he caused this intentionally." Relieved yet still unsettled, Simon's family agreed to proceed with surgery. The operation went smoothly, and the tumor was removed without complications. Simon recovered fully, much to everyone's relief. As for the old man, the lack of evidence meant the police had no choice but to release him. He slipped back into the shadows of the forest, his reputation more ominous than ever, a figure wrapped in rumor and suspicion. In the weeks that followed, life in the village of Canada slowly began to return to its quiet routine, though the villagers still crossed themselves discreetly when Simon walked by. The boy himself paid little mind to their superstition. He had more pressing concerns now, like exploring the woods again, though with a newfound caution born from his terrifying experience. Professor Nelson documented the case meticulously, publishing his findings in a prestigious medical journal, transforming Simon's ordeal into a fascinating, if obscure, footnote in scientific history. Yet, despite the professor's logical explanations, the villagers continued to whisper around campfires and kitchen tables late into the night. Some remained convinced the old man was a wizard, casting dark spells from the shadows. Others clung tightly to Nelson's clinical reasoning, seeing it as a lifeline against the unknown. Simon, however, had come to understand something deeper. The world wasn't simply black and white. Sometimes, the boundary between science and magic was so delicate, so thin, it was almost invisible. And sometimes, he thought with a shiver, perhaps the villagers hadn't been entirely wrong after all, especially when one night, He woke to find a single spider sitting silently on his windowsill, watching him with unblinking eyes, waiting for something yet unknown.